Okay, so I got my M1 MacBook Air 2 years ago now, and I've been so pleased with it. As a device, it is excellent. But one thing it doesn't have a lot of is connectivity. A couple of USB-C sockets, one of those is for charging, and then we've got a headphone socket on the other side. To be fair, if you're using Apple devices, you can do a lot wirelessly. But if you're not using Apple devices, then it's worth having more connectivity. Now, I've been sent a couple of docks by, I guess it's GIISSMO, and this has the two USB-C sockets, but you can see here, this one is power, but it also is a monitor output as well. So if you've got a USB-C monitor, we've got three standard USB 3A connections, a micro SD socket, and a full-size SD socket, which is really handy for cameras, and also micro SD is very handy for Raspberry Pis. But I've also been sent, and this is the one, I didn't realise I was getting two sent to me. This is the one I was more excited about. So, as you can see, it looks pretty much the same here, although it's a bit more elongated. And it has, on the end of it, an HDMI socket, so you can plug it into a monitor. So let's plug in the first one and see what we can do with it. So you can see here, just line it up and just slot it in. Powers up straight away. Nearly matches my Mac. It pretty much looks the part, and it's pretty flush with the base of the Mac as well, so if I pop it down, there's not really any movement or anything there. So let's open this up and log in. So I can power my Mac by plugging in here, and what I quite like about it is the spacing that's there. So there's still quite a lot of spacing to plug in everything. Sometimes with docks they put things too close together and you just don't have access to all the ports, or if you're plugging in adapters that are too wide. So my Oracle high-speed SSD, I've got a micro SD card in there, I've got a USB stick, and also my Xbox wireless controller, and you can see it's been powered as well, and all the drives have shown up. And if I introduce my WiMAX display, which is a USB-C display, so if we pop this here, I can either unplug this, which is so power into the dock, and plug in a USB-C to C cable. This should start to power up on its own. So now I have dual screen, so I can drag from one side to the other. So if I was to open up, say for instance, Safari, I can then click and drag that over to the second screen. So all that works absolutely fine, but you need to have a USB-C monitor for this particular use. Now I think I might be able to power it up via the monitor, because there's two USB-C sockets on here, and the whole idea of these is that this can take power and then transfer it over to my Mac. Okay, so it is powering my Mac in this configuration, but and I've just switched the cables around just because the monitor's gone off. So for some reason there's a bit of confusion with the setup. I don't know whether that's to do with the monitor, with the Mac, with the dock, but we have the other dock which has a dedicated HDMI output. So let's plug that one in. Okay, so that's interesting. So I plugged in the one with the HDMI socket on the back here. You can see the slightly longer one. And I'm doing the same configuration. So I've gone USB-C into the WiMAX display, and you can see that the Mac has recognized it. And then I'm taking the power from the WiMAX display out through the dock, and it is charging up my Mac. So that's a really nice configuration. And so again, I can call up something like, say for instance, Raspberry Pi Imager, and say no to the update, and drag that over to the side, and I've got proper dual display support. And one of the cool things you can do when you've got dual displays is start up UTM, which is a way of running different operating systems within macOS. So if I hit Linux here, this is actually Ubuntu, and I can drag it over to this second monitor, and I can have Ubuntu fully working on this monitor while I'm using this monitor just as normal macOS. And I've shown other videos on this. I've got Windows 11 running, Windows XP with UTM, with other docks and various different things. So that's just about to start. There you go. So that's normal Ubuntu, and I can log into that and hit enter, and we can see there is Ubuntu running absolutely fine, but I've also got macOS on this side, and I can view things in Safari and various different things like that. Super impressive. So that's USB-C. So you need a specific monitor that supports USB-C output, but also it has the HDMI output. So let's plug in an HDMI connection. because if we have a look at the Amazon listing page, and by the way, I'm amazed at how cheap these are, or how inexpensive for what they are. When I first had my Mac, I did look at various different solutions like this, and they're all so expensive I just didn't bother in the end. But yeah, really, really good price. So if we scroll down, you can see that they do show dual monitor support. Now, they do talk about it being mirrored from the Mac's display. So obviously you can see there's 3 monitors here, but it looks like you can mirror the Mac's display on one monitor and then have a secondary monitor that you can drag content over to. But I don't think that's supported on my M1 Mac. I've tried various different configurations and I can't get it to work, but I'm pretty sure on the MacBook Pros they do properly support dual display and will work in this fashion. You can see they've got a Thunderbolt port on this side supplying a monitor, and on this side it's a standard HDMI, so I think that's how they get into work. But while we're on this page, let's see what it's compatible with. So MacBook Pro from 2016 right up to 2022, MacBook Pro 15, 2016 to 2019, MacBook Pro 16-inch 2019, and then MacBook Air 2018 right up to 2022. Now I've plugged in HDMI, and you can see I've still got the USB-C plugged in, but my monitor isn't recognised, it just turned itself off. But if I unplug the USB-C, then I'm pretty sure it will just pick up this second monitor. Yeah, so you can see it switched straight away. So I think this is a limitation of this Mac, because you can't officially run 2 monitor outputs. And that's what it's trying to do by using the HDMI to USB-C adapter that's built into here, but also using that Thunderbolt port to send a display signal. Now USB-C monitors are very cool. You can see I've plugged in my Honor View 20 phone into this with just a USB-C cable. The phone is powering this monitor, and if I switch it into desktop mode, I can use it like a fully functioning computer. You can see Magic Desktop comes up. I've got a trackpad here, which allows me to move around on the screen, but also I can tap on any of these. So I can close down that Maps app, I can call up the icons. This becomes like a big tablet, and it is very, very cool. But I realise most people haven't got USB-C monitors and touchscreen monitors. So if you've got a normal HDMI monitor like is behind it, can we use this dock with this phone? So we're going to need an adapter to go from one of these USB-C sockets, and I've got a USB-C coupler here in my stick of dongles. So if I unplug this and pop this on here, I can then plug it into the USB-C on here and see what happens. Now it's not powered up, which is not a good sign. I'm going to unplug it from the phone. I have had this working with this. Now I realise this isn't what it's meant for, but I like messing about with this sort of thing. Yeah, so it's not powered up, but loads of other devices work with this in this configuration. So let's get rid of this USB-C monitor and let's introduce my iPad. Now I think I'm going to switch over to this monitor just because it's easier for me rather than reaching across. So I'm plugging the HDMI cable into the Acer monitor behind it. Trying to get it the right way around, and I'm just going to unplug and plug in again, because as I say, I have had it working with this on a phone, but I think it just doesn't have enough power now. So let's leave that one out. So let's plug in my iPad Pro. So it does work with my iPad Pro. As soon as I plug it in, it lights up, and my monitor will respond in a second. There you go. And also with that, I can use it with USB accessories as well, because this is a USB-C iPad. Which all iPads will be eventually, and all iPhones will be eventually, but at the moment they still don't have it. But say for instance I launch Chrome, you can see that it comes up with the page that I was looking at, and I can use it like a fully functioning computer with this adapter. So even though it's not meant for this, it obviously does support some other USB-C devices, as long as the USB-C device can provide enough power via that USB-C cable. So if I call up LumaFusion, which is what I edit my videos in, and you can see I can, well, it's easier if I do it with touch rather than use the mouse and keyboard, but you can see very responsive. The picture quality looks great, not as good as my iPad because they're amazing screens on that, but yeah, it works great. What else can we try on it? Something else with USB-C. This is the FiTab Duo, which is a prototype 12.5-inch tablet, but also with a detachable keyboard. I've got separate videos on this, but if I plug in the USB-C socket on this, we'll see if my light goes blue on my monitor. which it does. We should start to get a display, and here we go, and now we've got dual display desktop. I've got it that it's, at the moment it thinks it's on the right hand side, but I can change that. If I go back to settings and display, so display arrangement, and then I can move it that I'm guessing this is the monitor. Although actually this has got a much higher resolution. In fact, I've got the brightness really low. Look how bright this monitor goes. So now if I drag up to the top, I'm on this monitor. So if I want to drag that settings one up to the top, and then if I want to launch, say for instance, Chromium browser, you can see it comes up perfectly. So we have a look at the Amazon listing. There's actually 4 different versions they do. They do one with a breakout cable. They do the one I've got with the HDMI, which is directly fitting onto the Mac, which I really like. That's what appealed to me because it's just very, very neat. And then we've got another version which looks like it has higher quality video output, 4K 60. And then we've got the standard one, which is the one without an HDMI output, just that standard Thunderbolt output. But if we scroll down through, so again, they show it with the 2 monitors, really going to be a MacBook Pro feature, not the MacBook Air, unless some of the older MacBook Airs before M1 supported that. So it talks about up to 5K 60 output on the Thunderbolt socket, up to 1 terabyte storage on the SD and the micro SD, 5 gigabit per second transfer. This MacBook adapter is designed specifically for the MacBook, is not compatible with any other device. Well, I've had a few others, but yeah, it's definitely more suited to a MacBook. But you know, I would definitely use that with my iPad if I wanted to play some videos on a screen. So it's nice that it does more than one thing. I often turn down technology that companies want to send me to do a review on because it's just not interesting to me, or I think it's overpriced, or I don't see the use of it. But as soon as I saw this, I was just amazed at how inexpensive it was for what it gave you. So obviously the base model is fine if you're not going to use it with an extra monitor or you have a USB-C monitor, but I really like the HDMI one. That facility is just really, really handy, and I'd be interested to know if people buy these and they've got a MacBook Pro, how they get on with dual monitor support, because I know it's not officially supported on my M1 Mac. But yeah, I hope all this helps. I'll put links in the description to the products and also the little dongles and things that I've used. Thanks very much for watching. Please like and subscribe.